So we call this part of Revelation's ground warfare because it relates to the impact on society of sin and evil. So this is where things in the book of Revelation start to get a bit heavy, I think. It's God's final wake-up call to the church to get us to lead others to Christ. And that's the main, I think, focus of it is we need to be aware that it's time to reap a harvest, to go out there and to get people saved, because time is getting shorter. And it's about his judgment plan and his redemption plan. So as we enter chapter 6, we get a glimpse of what is to come, and we see details of the tribulation, of what's going to happen. Although I personally believe the tribulation has already begun. When you look at what's happening in the world, we only get to look at what's happening around the world through the news, I guess. You know, things are pretty good here. So when you look at news headlines and things, you'll see that, things look pretty grim. Oops, what have I done? Okay, so cultures will experience what they vote for and want. Abortion, same-sex marriage, sex change operations, euthanasia. There's a whole lot of that sort of stuff going on, and it's not good. It's all anti-God stuff. Israel had this happen to them as a type of how God will treat all the earth. He has cut down in Lamentations 2-3, it says he's cut down in fierce anger all the might of Israel. He has withdrawn from them his right hand in the face of the enemy. He has burned like a flaming fire in Jacob, consuming all around. So we see that the seals are starting to get broken. So the first seal is broken and the scroll is rolled out as the seals are broken. This is symbolic of the world having its way and receiving what the opening up of their decisions actually looks like. So the decisions of the world are opening up a whole lot of other stuff, and people don't realise what they're opening up, but that's what's happening in the world. And, what it looks like, what we're seeing happening is the consequences of those decisions that are being made. And as Jay said last week, we're all a part of that, of making those decisions in our voting and in lobbying the government and stuff like that. It's not just politicians who are making these decisions. We are definitely a part of that. So the first seal is opened, and it's God deciding to act and bring conflict as he brings his conquest, which is war. So the first seal is there's a white horse, and the colour white is associated with victory. So the first seal means that war comes, but conquest also comes. In Matthew 24 verse 6, it says that you'll hear wars and rumours of wars, so don't be alarmed. It's God allowing the end times to begin. So we should not be alarmed, but we should trust in God and know that God is in control. The second seal removes his peace, and so people begin to kill each other. Abortion and euthanasia are a part of that, people killing each other. But, if you look around what's happening around the world, it's terrible what's happening. So in the NIV it says that God causes people to kill people, but that translation is wrong. I think if you looked into it, you'd find that that's not exactly what it means at all. It just means that God's taken his hand off. So we're going to see anarchy and bloodshed. The second seal takes peace, and without peace people will act out far more than they would if they have peace. So we're going to see anarchy, like I said. And I think some of the things that are happening now are that where children are... I think we saw a case in America where a child said that their father wouldn't... I think it was about a sex change operation, and so the child just basically dobbed the father in, and the father's going to prison for that. And that sort of thing is going to happen more and more. It's really sad, isn't it? Because parents bring children up and they bring them up in the way that they feel is right, and then, children can turn on them, and I think that's sort of happening a fair bit in the world today, where children are turning on their parents. Another news line this week said Australia's top security officials warn that drums of war are beating amid rising China tensions. Did anyone see that headline? I think it was 9MSM. I get their emails, and so there's rumours of wars. There's definitely rumours of wars going on in the world, and there's tension between China and Australia, which is not a good thing. The Home Affairs Department Secretary said Australia must work to reduce the risk of war, but not at the cost of our precious liberty. So what does that mean? It could mean a whole lot of things. It's can be a bit scary, but we've got to keep our focus on God and what He's doing. So the third seal is famine, food shortages, and lack of food. There's a lot of people around the world starving. The fourth seal is famine and plague. So plague represents death. And the third horse is a black one, symbolising the famine and the shortage. In Acts 11 verse 27, a prophet predicts a great famine. Did you know that there's 22,000 people a day die of starvation every day in the world? 22,000. Who would have thought? We've all got plenty of food to eat, haven't we? We don't realise how bad it is, but that's what the statistics are, 22,000. And I don't know how old they are. I mean, they could be 12 months old too. That's not, more recent. More recent could possibly be 32,000 a day, I'm not sure. And wealth and inequality exist today more than ever before. There are so many very, very rich people, and there are so many very, very poor people. We've still got our middle class people, but I think there's a much greater gap. There's much more inequality today. And as Jay mentioned last week, part of that is because we're not looking after the land and we're not looking after the sea, where global warming's having an impact, and that's because of human error, what humans are doing. Would someone like to read Mark 13 verses 7 to 14? Jay, could you do that? Because I see you turning the pages.
Mark 13, yeah. What are the verses?
I think you gave me that scripture, 7 to 14.
7 to 14. No, that's the one. It says, when you hear of rumours of wars, when you hear of wars and rumours of wars, do not be frightened. These things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will also be famines, and these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs.
But the main thing there is to keep our focus on God and not look at what's happening around us. Just be sure that we are looking to God. So the fourth seal, the colour of the horse is corpse colour, symbolising death. So it talks about death for a quarter of the planet. And, that could make us think, well, what's the point? A quarter of the planet's going to die. But, and we could feel like just giving up. But doesn't all this make sense of what we see in the world around us right now? Doesn't it make sense, when you look around and see what's happening in different parts of the world? To me, it seems like, it's all beginning to happen. Another news headline was virus swallowing our people like a monster. And that was in India, where there's horror scenes. And it said as if we're in the middle of a war, because there are just so many people dying. Crematoriums are overwhelmed. I saw photos where there was like a big paddock and there was fires everywhere, and that's how we're getting rid of dead bodies, because the crematoriums can't cope with it. So they were just burning them out in paddocks. It's pretty awful. pretty confronting sort of stuff to see. For the fourth day straight, India sets a new COVID record. Now, this was a couple of days ago. 349,691 new infections. 16.9 million cases in India. And the USA had even more cases than that of coronavirus. India's fatalities were 192,311. And then yesterday the news headline said that India breaks record again with over 400,000 new coronavirus cases. That is huge, absolutely huge. You can see how a quarter of the world could die just from coronavirus. And maybe that's how it's going to happen. Jesus said when we hear of these things, we're not to be afraid. So where should we be looking? Who should we be looking to? Jay?
Yeah,
I thought
Jesus.
Looking to God, yeah, on the throne. God is in control. He holds the scroll. What does that mean? It means he's allowing it. What we're seeing is the consequence of sin and the demand to live without God, because so many people don't believe in God. They don't want to listen. They don't want to read the Bible. They don't want to do what God says. Even if they believe in a God, they don't believe in his word. They think it's, old-fashioned. It's not relevant today. And so they don't want to believe in the word of God. We are really fortunate. We live in a really good part of the world, don't we? I mean, we've got it pretty good here, I think, when you read about what's happening everywhere else. But if we look at what's happening in the other countries, things look really bleak, don't they? They're not looking good at all. All the things we've just talked about are already happening. I think we need to be looking to God. He rules. Jesus is for us, so no one can come against us. He shed his blood for us. But now God is lifting his hand. He's lifting his hand of protection. In order to disciple older children, parents sometimes allow them to do what they want. As children get older, we say, well, they've got to learn for themselves and they've got to suffer the consequences of their actions. And I see a lot of that happening in my family with my grandkids. Don't know if they're learning, but anyway, I hope so. And hopefully it causes positive change when they're allowed to suffer the consequences of their actions. And I think, that's what God's doing with us, with the world. He's allowing the world to suffer the consequences of its actions.
Of the actions of the people. And he's taking his hand off and saying, okay, see if you don't learn from this, because he wants us to learn. Thank goodness, nothing can separate us from the love of God. I think if we know God and we're looking to God, nothing can separate us from his love. So we don't need to be fearful. He's with us. So the fifth seal, this is where martyrdom is increasing and persecution of Christians across the world. And it's increasing, it's getting pretty bad. Martyrdom is at an all-time high at the moment. There's more people being martyred than ever before. So Christian persecution is at near genocide levels. BBC May 2019, is that what they said there? That was a headline, wasn't it? Yes, I think so, yeah. So I just wonder, how serious are we about our commitment to God? Are we willing to die for our faith? We see it happening in China and Iraq and lots of countries, and it's a scary thing, isn't it, to think that you might be threatened to be killed because of your faith. And I think it's something we do need to think about. Are we prepared to die for our faith? The persecution of Christians in China, Africa, Iraq, and in lots of other countries is pretty high. I know my son is studying history. He's not a Christian. but he did this little brief documentary, and in that he showed various countries where Christians, Muslims, I think there was one other religion where they were being persecuted, and he showed a little clip of the Christians that were being persecuted in China, and it's happening in lots of other countries too. It was absolutely horrific. There were hundreds and thousands of them. So we may not see it, but it's happening. I think if we went looking for it on the internet, we'd be able to find it, but we don't want to look for it, do we? We don't want to see it because it makes us think about our own mortality and could that happen here in Australia? But it's happening, and I think we need to be grateful that we're living in a country that we're living in. Seal 6 is about natural disasters, the sixth seal. So we've had more earthquakes than ever before. We had a couple in Ararat just recently where, I don't know about you guys, but I was in my little unit and I could feel the earth shake. I thought, wow, what's happening? And that was, 2 days in a row or something? It was twice in 1 week, anyway, I remember that. So why do they happen? Well, I think it's because we mistreat the planet. It says in Romans 8 verse 22 that there will be groanings, and I think that's the earthquakes and the tremors. They're definitely happening more frequently. Other natural disasters are volcanoes, tsunamis. Gee, there's more tsunamis than ever before too, isn't there? You hear them quite frequently now. Yeah, it's also a byproduct of wars, atom bombs, nuclear warfare, chemical misuse, and playing God with DNA, which is a big thing now too. So, Revelation 7 talks about people with white robes before the throne worshipping God. They're the ones that have come out of the tribulation. In Revelation 7 verse 13 to 7. Have you got that, Jade? Could you read that one out?
Okay, yep. Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, these who are clothed in the white robes, who are they, and where have they come from? I said to him, my Lord, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones who came out of the great tribulation, and they've washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb.
Yep, so they're the people that have come out of the Great Tribulation. So who is able to stand after Revelation 6 in the shadow of what God is allowing? And I guess the challenge here is, are we living for God? Are we getting people saved? Because that's what the challenge is. That's what we need to be doing. That's what God is telling us to do through all this is to, we want to see our families saved, we want to see our friends saved, we want to see so many more people coming to God. And, we can't be passive about that any longer. We've got to be active about it. We've got to be intentional about it. It's not just about hinting to people about God, it's about intentionally being actively witnessing to people and to our families. And I think we need to give it a lot more thought. And it talks about that, God protects us, and I think He protects us who are obedient. And if we're not obedient, we can expect to see God's hand from our lives. But if we're obedient to God, we can see that God will protect us. And I certainly know that God's done that throughout my life, that He's protected me. But when I've been backslidden and I haven't been walking with God, which was, a period of maybe 7 years or something, I know that God's hand of protection was not on me. There were all sorts of things happening in my life, in my family's lives. And it's because I was the spiritual head of my family, but I'd stepped down from that position, and so I allowed the enemy to get in. So we need to be really careful that we're walking with God, we're obedient to God, and we're following His word, and we're giving God the glory for the good things that He's doing in our lives. it says somewhere in Revelations 7 about 144,000 people being saved. However, I know there's lots of ideas about that, like the Seventh-day Adventist talk about, I guess Calvin knows this better than I would, but I read somewhere that Seventh-day Adventists sort of said that 144,000 were going to be saved from their people. The others were going to go to heaven to be with God, I think it was, and the others are going to be in paradise. But there was something about that 144,000 that they were doing all the right things. And the Jehovah's Witnesses is a bit different. They're the ones that, they say that too, But I did read, Kelvin, do you know anything about that, the 144,000 that the Seventh-day Adventists talked about?
Not Seventh-day Adventists, no.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. Yeah, I knew about Jehovah's Witness, but I actually read that it was both of those denominations. So maybe the information I read was incorrect. But I know that I've had discussions with Jehovah's Witnesses about it, and I remember saying many years ago to one of them at my front door, well, why are you even bothering, because only 144,000 of you are going to heaven anyway. And they said to me, oh no, we're going to be in paradise. It's the 144,000 that are going to be with God in heaven. I said, oh, okay. I still don't understand why you would bother knocking on doors all the time, because you're probably not going to get to the 144,000 to be in heaven, because I'm sure there's already 144,000 that have gone before you and done better than you guys. And they said, oh yeah, probably. What I used to do with them was I'd say, look, I'll take your tract and read it if you'll take mine. And if they said no, I'd say to them, well, I don't want it. And if they insisted, I'd say, you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to use it to start a fire. I've got a slow combustion stove, and then they'd withdraw it. They didn't want me to start a fire with it for some reason. So, we need to be careful that we know the truth, because it's the truth that sets us free, isn't it? And we need to be careful that we put our focus on God and not on a whole lot of other empty promises that we can see in the world, that the world tells us about. So in the Bible, the reason why I brought up 144,000 is because in the Bible, lots of numbers are significant, not just 144,000. 144,000, I think, is talking about, it represents a number that's countless, so it's endless. So it's not about 144,000 people, it's about a whole lot more. It's a number that represents countlessness. The numbers 7 and 10 and 12 are all numbers that are significant in the Bible. They all have significant things attached to them. They all represent something, and we're not going to go into that now, but there are many numbers in the Bible that are significant. So I think, we need to remember that we are all a part of God's army. All of us, every single one of us is a part of God's army, even the children. And He's commissioned us to reach the lost for His kingdom. And it's really important that we reach out to others and that we're not keeping all the good stuff to ourselves, but we're sharing with others, and we're sharing God's peace and God's love and His plan of salvation for our lives with everybody else, because we want to see more people saved, In verse 9 it says, a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people and language, standing before the throne of God and before the Lamb. Verse 14, these are they who have come out of the great tribulation, they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So are we going to make it through? So we're going to be numbered with them. I hope so. I hope every one of us is going to be numbered with them. In Luke, I might get a few people to read this out. We've got 5 minutes? No? Okay. So they talk about not looking back, looking forward, not walking away from God, but walking with God, not sacrificing our faith for the sake of family. not shrinking from death if it comes to it, and fighting the good fight. We need to be prepared to fight the good fight. Just one scripture in Revelation 7 verses 13 to 17. Has anybody got their Bible open? Kevin? Revelation 7 verses 13 to 17.
13 to 17.
Yep.
Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, "Who are these arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from?" And I said to him, "Sir, you know." So he said to me, "These are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and wash their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger any more, nor thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat. For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of waters. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes."
There'll be no more crying, no more pain. We'll be with him. What a privilege. We're a very privileged people. God is so good. So let's finish off with just, I might get Jay to do this, let's make a fresh commitment to Jesus and to forsake all the things that draw us away from the living God. There are so many things in the world today that draw us away from God. And we just need to become more aware of it, I think. All right, let's just pray. Father, we thank you that we're not left not knowing what's going to happen, Father. You've revealed your plan to us, and we have no excuse, Father. And Father, we thank you that you've given us many opportunities, or once again, you give us an opportunity today to recommit our lives to you, Father, and to change if that's what we need to do, Father, to repent and to change. Father, I pray that you help each one of us just to be more aware of your presence and your guidance, and more aware of those around us who aren't saved and who are ready to hear the word of the Lord, those who are ready to come to you, Father. And I pray, Father, that you give us the courage and the strength and the wisdom to know what to say and to lead others to you, Father. In Jesus' name. Thank you. Amen.